Hindsight, like I've been working with my hindsight a lot lately, and it's weird because like every moment feels so new and unfamiliar, and there's a lot of stepping up that I'm having to do.
That takes a lot of strength to be able to heal and grow on like a consistent and continual basis, and allow yourself to go wherever that road is going to lead you.
Actually had a dream last night that I think had to do with this, that I woke up to, and I was like, had to do with me like being nervous to be here and be vulnerable and talk about this. I'm just gonna keep breathing with it, and that's something that I really like to do, is to be vulnerable and like learn how to overcome and always grow from my experiences. I feel like that's brought me to art and to music and to like healing medicine and herbal medicine, and that kind of brought me into gardening. And like I like to do a lot of things, but for me it's all about celebrating the human spirit and just helping others, community, and healing the earth. My parents is a reflection of the world that they grew up in, and you know, the world that we're still all growing up in is like they're not, it was sort of almost like they were given scripts to follow by society, and then they're like, okay, this is, you know, these are our roles. And it's the kind of thing where it's a hindsight thing. Again, it's like you don't know always how to be a parent in this moment because it's organic. It's you're not you know, it's not cut and dry, and children have zero script. They're writing their own story all the time.
Yeah.
So I was that child. Like I was a C-section baby, and then like immediately after I was born, I was also circumcised. And the doctor basically convinced my mom that that was the best thing to do. I know I could feel pain, and it's like, I don't think they like let me be with my mom afterwards. I think they kept me kind of away from people for a while after that too. So one of my very first experiences on this planet was being in a lot of pain and not having anyone there for me when I had no one there for myself. I feel extremely blessed to be as stable as I am, just given just the nature of suffering in this world. These little things that may have to do with gender roles and society pushing gender roles on me, but it's not cut and dry. But for me, I feel like there was several things that contributed to the formation of my identity today that could have changed me in a lot of different ways. And definitely, I think a lot of people base their identities off of their traumas and not as much off of their strength or off of their like spirit itself. I don't know, I feel kind of stumped right now, and I think it's a sign that I'm just meant to go and like be with my feelings and be with myself. There's a part of me that's still not sure, but there's a part of me that knows definitely what I experienced was narcissism growing up. And I'm thinking about like my identity, but I'm also thinking about like this as a social illness, not just as like one person with a mental illness hurting another person or something.
Absolutely.
You know, it's been giving me a lot of compassion for my dad, but then at the same time I'm afraid to open up to somebody like him.
I have found in dealing with narcissists, I try to stay as far away from them as humanly possible. But
Yeah,
they're going to be in your workplace. They're going to be members of your family. They're going to be friends. And so you can't just say, you know, I'm not going to deal with them at all. But in relationships as close as your dad, and And your dad is your dad, as your father is your dad. So it's hard. It's hard, but you're doing the right thing, healing yourself first, because you just don't know how it's going to affect you if you approach him right now having no idea where you're at. You don't know what your boundaries should be with him. And you have to establish that first, definitely. Understanding what your boundaries are with him.
It was I really want to talk about it, and I do talk about it, but I don't know how closely he follows my life, and if he knows, that I go by other names, for example, and like stuff like that. Like, I don't know how he would react. I feel like he would feel betrayed.
He is a human being, so a part of him, the right and wrong part of him, the right part of him does get it, but the narcissistic part of him is not going to allow him to accept the responsibility. In my research, narcissism does not get better with age.
It gets worse with age.
It gets worse with age. But maybe this video getting out and seeing that you have to resort to talking to other people about it in order to heal, maybe that'll get through and open the door for communication, a healthy communication with you guys. But the relationship that you have with your mom is a very good model of really putting one foot in front of the other and really trying and really loving and really trying and really loving. So I think that's very healthy as well. I want to give people a thorough understanding of what that's like. I don't think people, although narcissism is very much a hot topic right now, I don't think people really understand what it means yet. And the best way to understand, I think, what it means is to see the effects of it.
When we played together, it was like he was getting to reconnect with his inner child, which I think that's beautiful, and I think that's a medicine that children bring to the world, is that, reminder of innocence. And that's, part of why there's so many people are very freaked out about protecting our children and QAnon and stuff like that. But also there's just, it's hard, because I think working with children is an amazing, rewarding thing. But what happened to my dad very early on was he was emotionally and maybe physically neglected severely by his parents. And there was some moment where he had to create a false self in order to survive. Mm-hmm. It was a matter of either being authentic and being rejected, or this fake self and having a place to live and having food on the table. Mm-hmm. And any human would make that same choice, I think. It's
survival.
Yeah, when you're that young. So when I talked about epigenetics and where it all started, my grandpa was also adopted. He grew up first as a migrant farm worker in cotton fields, actually.
Wow.
And yeah, I just found that out at his funeral, and I was just seriously, none other than cotton fields. And then he was adopted by, so his mom was, I don't know if she identified as Mexican, but she had Mexican ancestry. She looked Mexican. He was working as a migrant farm worker, and then he was adopted by a white Christian family. And I think from pretty much then on, he identified as white and had the struggle of a foster child, and I think also my dad's mom or her mom was adopted. There's like a few points in history where, you know, that same physical and emotional neglect was played out. And I kind of see it repeat with each generation.
Mm-hmm.
And so my dad didn't really know how to relate to me as a dad. It was from a wounded child's perspective a lot. I think there was jealousy. I think he was jealous that I was a child and that I hadn't learned shame yet.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he took it upon himself to teach me shame. And I have some questions about that. You know, was it just because he wanted me to be like him? Because, like I mentioned before, I was circumcised. He wanted that for me. He wanted me to look like him.
Well, that's definitely part of it. Part of narcissism is needing to be surrounded by what is like you in order to have company and not be alone and not feel like you are the outsider and not feel like you're wrong. So they cannot handle that. So it makes total sense that absolutely there was jealousy. There was a lot of it. So now that you are absolutely, no matter what was done to you or what your experience is, now that you are identifying wholly as who you are in your skin and in your heart and in your soul, that is very, very threatening to him. But you've got to keep doing what you're doing, because this is you in your space in your life, and you're meant to be who you're meant to be.
I know how complex trauma can work, and I know that I see narcissism as a symptom of PTSD in a way,
Mm-hmm.
but not always. And I wish that he could find his own empowerment, and not try to take it from other people. Like, for me, it was on a regular basis. So like, it's not just if it happened once or not. It's about how often it happened, how bad it was, and then the key component is, were you supported afterwards? Was there anyone there for you,
Mm-hmm.
to like help you out and help you get out of that state of shock and help you, heal from that?
Mm-hmm.
So complex trauma is when you're in an environment that traumatizes you, and it can be little traumas, it can be big traumas. It doesn't really matter. It's just, what makes it complex is that it keeps being all these traumas and no one's there helping you through it. No one's
Mm-hmm.
there. You're not letting go of all of it. You can do your best to like heal it, but there's so many moving parts to complex trauma. There's that, because that became like, that could be like several years at a time, that could be decades at a time of like stuff, and a lot happens in that time. So when people talk about triggers and what triggers people's PTSD or their trauma response, I don't think people realize just how many things could actually be a trigger.
If you go decades without processing all of these traumas, you really don't know what is triggering. What is it? Now that I'm thinking about all that, that's a lot. That's a lot. And you have no idea. Even if you are able to pinpoint 2 or 3 triggers, there could be 20 other ones that you have no idea are there. Having the strength to continue to go through each layer, and that takes a lot. It takes a lot of strength and a lot of time. But boy, can you imagine how one feels once they get through all of that?
No.
When you think about what's on the other side of like that equation, you just feel like, I I can imagine like feeling light as air and just being like doing what you're doing right now, just able to breathe and just able to just live and able to love and able to it makes going through sifting through all that darkness, it makes sifting through all of that so worth it.
So worth it. Sifting through all of the trauma and actually like unpacking that. I have kind of a sense of what that might be like. I can feel that in this conversation, and I can tell that like it's worth it. It's so worth it to unpack all of it, because the second you actually recognize it and see it, like it's all strength. It's all love. It all becomes your superpower, because it's just, you just have to recognize it and care for it, you know? It's like,
I'm so happy that you see your experience as being your superpower. There are very few, and I mean very few people who see it that way. And
yeah.
like you can either take your experiences, your traumatic experiences, and let them hold you down and live in the darkness, or you can take them and use them as what I call rocket fuel, and just because it's all just energy, and how you interpret that energy will determine where you're going to be with it, whether you let it take you over to the darkness over to the left or into the light over on the right. I want to read you something, and I've been wanting to read this to you since we were starting to talk. There's this TV show that I binge watched. It's called The OA.
Okay.
It's on Netflix, and it's about this young lady who turns out to be the original angel. And for whatever reason, it was canceled after the second season. I don't get it. But there's something that she said in the last episode that I watched. And she said, because she was standing in front of this gentleman that had tortured her literally for 7 years. And she said, that's what an angel is. Dust pressed into a diamond by the weight of this world. I think that you are an angel. For real.
I think you're an angel. I think there's a lot of angels on this earth right now.
I do. Yes, that makes a lot of sense, what you just said. There's a lot of us.
I feel like I have this tangled up ball inside of me, like a ball of yarn almost. And it's just like, we're like pulling threads out, and I feel every time we talk, it's like the story gets clearer.
That's everything that I want. That is everything that I want with EyeOnDV. Each and every person that either who I talk to directly, all I want is for people to be able to feel better. I just want them to just be happier.